Well, welcome everybody to a special issue of a special version of Direct Line. What we have are the various guests from 21 this week. We've got Susan Heltemus, political strategist. We've got Jerry Cave zooming his way in from Louisiana. Dwight Patel, and myself, Mark Unkefer, various guests. Patel, from what do we describe you
Uh,
as a tech entrepreneur?
yeah, that works too. I'm also the tech
Jerry,
chair.
go ahead. Sorry,
I'm also the tech chair for the Maryland GOP.
tech chair of the Maryland. Jerry Cave, and we also have filling in temporarily for Casey Aiken, Ryan Nidak.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. So we've been off the air 21, and this is not 21. Let's be clear about that. But we also recognize there really hasn't been an opportunity to talk about Montgomery County news the way that program does for the last couple of weeks. And several of us, Dwight, Susan, and I, and Casey, were all on the last show. So going around, we'll start with you, Susan. What's the biggest thing you missed since the last show?
Oh, I guess living by myself, I miss seeing people. I'm following the guidelines, and I miss seeing people. So this is a wonderful time tonight to be with my Republican friends.
Well, we're glad to have you. I think Dwight is of a like mind on that. I think Dwight, you're chomping at the bit, are you not?
I am just I want to go out and spread the gospel, and help President Trump get reelected again. It's hard to do, as being indoors and just talking to 4 or 5 other people. It's not the same as going around and being around people. I'm a people person. I love people.
Now Jerry, down in New Orleans, things are a little bit more relaxed down there. On the other hand, your city has really been hard hit by COVID. So what's the situation?
Well, first off, let me give you the difference. This place is completely different than Washington, where everybody's serious. And people here really don't care about what happens in the rest of the country. So if I talk about national politics, everybody asks me to leave. They don't even care about the rest of the state. Anything north of Interstate 12 or Baton Rouge, they couldn't care less about. And there's so much fun stuff to do down here outside for free or inexpensive that you can almost see why it's its own little world down here. Now, I guess your question is, how's the lockdown and the COVID thing playing in New Orleans?
And now, Ryan, you've been out of school, but you've been Zooming steadily for actually a couple of weeks now. So your experience is not all that different, is it?
No, not really. I mean, it's been Zooming along. It's a lot different than going to a class of 250 people. It'll be interesting to see in the fall if it seems they're going to try to reopen or do as much of that as they can. But how do you do that and still maintain social distancing? So more to come in the next few weeks.
Now, on a more serious note, Montgomery County has been experiencing a lot more COVID cases and deaths than, frankly, many states in the country. It's actually, I think, 4 times the number of cases. Last I looked, 4 times as many deaths as West Virginia, and that's just only one of the states. Will we need to stay locked down longer and perhaps even longer than the rest of the country?
Governor Hogan says that we do. And right now in Maryland, there are 20,000, the last report was 20,849 cases with 985 deaths. And right here in Montgomery County, and this is really very frightening, we have 1,645 people in the hospital, and of those, 585 are in intensive care. And if you're in intensive care, depending on your age, your chances of making it out aren't so good. So it's going to be a while. And the governor keeps saying, we've got to wait a while. So I have to give the governor kudos. I think with the exception of 2 things that he maybe erred on the whole, he's doing a great job. And he's doing a great job representing as the chair of the governor's commission. He's willing to talk back to anybody, including the president, when he sees fit, and I think that says a great deal about his leadership. And I also want to say that I was impressed that he had the wherewithal, along with his wife, to go and get tests from South Korea. That was a true stroke of genius, and I commend he and his wife Yumi for the good work.
Jerry, Dwight?
I think I think just purely on economics grounds, we need to open up sooner rather than later. Look, I think we flattened the curve. We've got very good treatment. We've got we can treat.
It's not flattened yet, Dwight.
What's
according
that?
to the governor. And if you look at the numbers and the charts, it's not flattened yet. It's going to be a bit off yet before it's flattened.
True. But we're very close to it flatlining. We need to open up the economy. A lot of small business are hanging on by a thread. I heard today or the other day, actually, three brothers, a long-time pizza establishment in Montgomery County and Prince George's County, they might be shutting down as a result of this because they just can't afford to pay the high rent. While this shuts.
But to Susan's point, it is true that hospitalizations in Maryland are continuing to decline, although the level of decline increase, but the rate of increase is getting smaller and smaller. So there is at least that.
But if you follow the original guidelines, Mark, it's supposed to be 14 days of going down, and we're not anywhere near. And I have to commend, the state has got a loan program. Montgomery County started writing its first checks today. And with the federal program, I think you can be fully.
One thing I want to Susan is who's getting.
Let me jump in here for a minute.
Okay.
So this thing has been part of our family folklore because I had an uncle that died in the 1918 epidemic. And that's about all I know about it. And I'm not an expert in medicine or pandemics, but I'll tell you, the cure is going to kill a lot of people because this is going to cause a tremendous amount of economic devastation, much more than you can be aware of in Washington, where all these people are going to go back to work. Down here in New Orleans, you got this city is supported by two industries, hospitals and hospitality. And the hospitality people are completely out of work, and you can't go days, weeks, months with zero revenue and come back. And when you have people that are completely crushed economically, that is going to have all kinds of fallout. So I don't know if the lockdown is the right thing. And I'm not criticizing it or saying we ought to do something different, but I'm just saying this is the consequences of this are not only going to be severe in a short run, but it's really going to change, I think, how we operate. But the lockdown is really causing a tremendous amount of damage.
Well, as someone who I think had the flu in late March, it is devastating. And if you were elderly or had any kind of severe compromise, you would be out. And, where do you cut the line, Jerry? I don't know.
I don't think I've ever said that to you, Susan. I don't know. I don't know this that well.
Jerry.
Huh? No, it's the first time I've ever said it. Everything else I know about. Happy to tell you. I'll tell you what the deal on this is, though. They need to make Red China pay.
Yes,
I agree.
It was either a conceived plan, if you're into conspiracy theories, and if not, it's fabulous collateral damage because now they're going to go around and buy what they haven't bought in the West for a bargain, whether it's on the stock market or on the real estate market, because of this damage. And if I was President Trump, I would confiscate every penny of anything the Chinese had outside of China, and I dare them to open their mouth. But the way they handled this caused this problem, and it's caused tens of trillions of dollars of financial damage. And then forget about the people that die from the virus. The other collateral damage that'll impact people's health will kill thousands more. And they are 100% responsible for this.
Absolutely,
but
Jerry. Absolutely. I think it's Red China needs to pay. This is the Chicom virus. This is I think one, sanctions. We need to isolate China. They should be, and I think we need to finally get out of the United Nations and the world. It's great that we stopped payments to the World Health Organization. I think we need to get out of the United Nations. They're nothing more than basically an organization run by a bunch of tin horn dictators who hate America and blame America first crowd. It's time for us to play a
Stop
little
underselling it,
But
Dwight.
wait a
Much
second.
worse than
But
that.
guys, if there's one thing we've learned from this is the global nature of pandemics, that you can't control where it comes from. So we've had viruses like Ebola, which didn't break out as a very different kind of virus, but that came from Africa. Clearly, we need some kind of multilateral mechanism to be able to respond to this stuff.
If
I
you
think-
have
well, and I
borders,
want to say, Jerry, I want to say right now, it's very encouraging that Oxford has said that they have a very promising vaccine. And they are working on this vaccine based on information they had gleaned on working with MRSA. And they think they could have something. They're testing it already on human beings, and they had tested it on some monkeys somewhere here in the United States, and it did well. They're now testing it on people. But I just want to say the United States could be doing that, but for the fact that Trump got rid of all those offices where they were doing that research. And as a result, we lost a lot. Now, I think we should learn from that we do need to keep that pandemic office going, the research going year in and year out. And I also am very frustrated because the World Health Organization had American government employees embedded in it. And if you read the stories about what went on, they were warning the United States as early as December, then in January, throughout all of February, that this was coming down. In January, which I said on the last TV show a long time ago, that the military defense intelligence, military health intelligence.
Susan,
had
allow me
said
to
the
interrupt.
president-
Susan.
Let me interrupt you for a minute. If you study history, you will find in military intelligence, there is always somebody who predicted what happened. There's a million predictions by all these people. And in the post game, they go, see, I said that. But all the people said a whole lot of things. This is not Donald Trump's fault. This is not our fault. This is not a fault of any changes we made. The World Health Organization, I think, cooperated with China. But regardless, this is China's fault. They did it by the way they handled this. These things all come out of there. And it's pointing out how vulnerable we've made ourselves. We have shipped our jobs out there to China, which has this doesn't save anybody any money having stuff made in China. It's cheaper for the consumer and a corporation, but when you put 3 million factory workers out of work, you have now made those costs, shifted those to government and their constituents. This has all been terrible. We need to bring everything back. Everything Donald Trump has been saying is now in spades because of this. This has highlighted all of it.
Jerry, to kind of add on to your earlier point about this not really being Trump's fault, I think it's kind of absurd to say that Trump didn't react soon enough when, one, nobody knew, and like you said, there's going to be all sorts of predictions and one will end up being right. But not to mention that back in February when he put the travel ban on from China, the Democrats didn't even talk about it during their presidential debate. So to act like they somehow knew sooner than he did and he wasn't doing anything.
Wait a minute. It came down that night of the debate. And the questions were asked, and the interviewer said nothing about it. But it was that night, shortly before the debate started. So I think that's a bogus comment because
I think Ryan's made a good comment. It certainly wasn't anything that they were espousing or commenting on at the time.
But let's switch back a little bit to Maryland and kind of look forward as to kind of what the impact a lot of this stuff is going to be. So how about Kirwan Commission? Is that going to be deferred for given what's going to happen with the economy?
Yep, it's deferred.
And I hope it basically gets deferred. And I hope all those Democrats vote for the tax increases when they're up for re-election in 2022.
Okay.
It won't make any difference.
Yeah.
The most powerful group of people in the state of Maryland is the teachers union. They've got the most money, the most people, and all Kerwin is a payoff to the teachers union.
You can still get on to the last part.
So
they pay, when you look at the numbers of how much they pay per student to educate people in Maryland, and then you take in the factor that they don't even have to pay for the facility, they're spending enough money. It's like sending every kid to Landon or St. Albans.
Yeah.
And the results aren't quite like Landon and St. Albans.
No, they're not.
That's
so
not, money is not the problem.
So one of the other issues that's going on these days is Robin Ficker has announced that he's running for governor, and he has a platform of cutting the sales tax from 6% to 4%. So any thoughts about that?
Well, Robin Ficker isn't going to win, so I don't know. I can't imagine. I thought you guys were better organized than that. I can't imagine that Robin would win the primary.
I think there's other people that are going to announce, Susan, but that was a good shot.
But here's the
and go ahead.
Okay, my point is, Susan, unlike the Democrat Party, we don't jerry rig and put our fingers on the scale to make sure that certain candidates get booted off, and we can't.
Go to South Carolina, Texas, Philadelphia, Ohio. I don't want to hear that, but I do think that you're going to have a few. But on the Democratic side, I've heard there are as many as 13 who are going to run.
Yeah, I understand Doug Gansler is going to be running, as well as Peter Francho, who's got that chief of staff who wants to give COVID-19 to all the Trump supporters, which Peter Francho should fire him. And honestly, then you guys
probably didn't disagree with him.
Yeah,
there are a lot of people you don't even know about yet, but there are going to be 13. I've been told.
So 13 at this point. My God, that's going to end up looking like the council at large race in Montgomery County. There's sort of a phenomena where you get that many candidates that then the next candidate says, "Well, I might only need 10% of the vote to win." So
it's like the last.
Look, I don't know how many chances I'm going to have to clear this up for you. So I'll just take care of it and do it right now. Hogan is so popular and powerful that he might carry a real wind into a third election. And the next governor of the state of Maryland is going to be Boyd Rutherford, primarily based on all those great skills he learned by being on 21 This Week.
There you go. I was just going to make that point. It would be a 21 This Week governor, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was supposed to be the Commerce Secretary who is the darling on the right. Right?
No.
Here's the real boss of my house.
Hey.
Go inside. Pawpaw's on the phone.
I think there still is doubt whether Boyd wants to run. I mean, does he want to run? I've heard he doesn't necessarily want to run.
Oh, I think that's kind of old news. I think maybe 6 or 9 months ago you might have had that conversation, but I think it's his heart and soul is much more into the race. Dwight, what do you think? Ryan, what do you think?
Well, I think
a Boyd Kelly Schultz ticket would be a fantastic ticket. I hope that they do it. Dwight?
I agree, and I think one thing with the Democrats is they're going to split the moderate vote 3 ways between Doug Gansler, John Delaney, and Peter Francho. Even though Peter Francho is a Tacoma Park liberal, which everyone seems to have forgotten, he campaigned on, I'm a pro-choice Democrat, and when he was running for comptroller against William Dollar Schaefer. And then you've got
he is pro-choice. That's not liberal, though.
But that wasn't really I think the point was that wasn't a controller's issue.
Yeah. And then you have, you're going to have probably on the left, Ben Jealous will probably run again.
Well, what about the Republican side? That's what he asked you. Do you think that Boyd's going to run?
Yes.
I'm pretty convinced he's going to run.
He's definitely going to run.
Boyd's going to run, and he's going to be the next governor, too. I am going out there being bold and saying Boyd Rutherford will be the next governor of Maryland.
So are you, Dwight, are you prepared to be as bold about Boyd as Jerry was about Donald Trump? Because I think Jerry, even among his fellow Republican panelists 2 years ago, I don't think there was quite as much strong, in all fairness, quite as much certainty as we had there. What do you think, Jerry?
I think it's Boyd. He's definitely going to run. I think he's going to win. And I predicted that Hogan would win his first election before he even announced he was running. I predicted Trump would win. I haven't been wrong since I picked Romney in 2012.
I picked Governor Hogan too.
I'm a better barometer now than I was then.
But Floyd Rutherford always says, "I'm not really a politician."
He's
and
not.
He said, "I don't like doing that," and that could be if Kelly Schultz, that's her name, right, goes out there and is real gung ho. I think it would be hard for Boyd then. And you know what? There is that curse of the lieutenant governor. They've never won in Maryland. The lieutenant governor has never won.
I think that's been a Democratic curse.
And we've never had a lieutenant governor like Boyd Rutherford who's actually done things behind the scenes. They haven't been like a media hog like some of the past governors,
Dwight is right on the money.
Boyd
is a great statesman.
He is the Maryland.
I really like Boyd, but
Silent Boyd.
He has told me he doesn't like to campaign. He's not political.
A lot of people say they're not political. Donald Trump ran on not being political, and he's the president of the United States.
Governor Hogan said he's not a politician. He was a businessman.
Oh, give me a break. He was a politician the day he was born.
I got to agree with Susan again. One day. Where's the lightning?
It kind of very much in the family business. So let's turn to another topic here in Montgomery County. There's been a lot of kerfuffle about the prospect of an increase in the real estate property tax rates. So are they going to go up?
The council already sent a letter to the county executive. They're not going to do it. It isn't going to happen. It's done. It ain't going to happen.
Well, I'm glad they've got a little bit of common sense, more sense than I gave them credit for. But we all know they're going to bring this up next year, and Mark Elrick's going to sign it because
I don't think it will come up.
Mark Elrick might want to. I understand Mark Elrick's buying a new SUV too. By the way, Susan, he wants the 2021.
So let's go back to Susan.
I don't think. I think next year is going to be really hard for them. I think the council after a year has matured a bit, perhaps, or not matured, but has evolved in their ideas, and they're beginning to appreciate the pain that it goes along with sometimes with a tax increase. And I don't think that's going to happen for a while. And I would bet that Mark would now defer also. I think Mark realizes it's not a wise decision to make right now.
And also,
I think
you all are in a insulated bubble in Washington. 26% of all the working people work for one form of government or another, which means everybody's got relatives. And you all work for entities that are still going to have your jobs. But this is going to be a different country next year because of the economic damage that's been done by this lockdown and this pandemic. And you can't just throw $5 or $10 trillion at it and not have a problem with adding that much debt. And it's going to impact you less in that area, but this is going to be a different country in 2021. This is a seismic event.
Well, I want to tell you, Jerry, from the perspective of just the liquor industry in Maryland, the governor came down at the suggestion of Peter Franchot to let all establishments have the ability to deliver alcohol, which is a separate thing, but they could now get permission to do that like the snap of a finger. And they also can go so far now if they can sell cups to go. And this was all predicated on the fact that for restaurants to exist, you need to do as much as you can. So that's the restaurant industry. And some restaurants will go. But I must say that, pardon me, it is. But And we know it. I mean, here in Montgomery County, businesses are going to close, just like across the country, and it is painful.
It's going to be devastating. It's one thing when people don't have money, but when the businesses lose it, the businesses close, there's nowhere to go back to work.
Yep.
In 1973, you had the oil embargo, which quintupled the price of oil, and it totally changed the auto industry forever. Was a contributing factor to the fall of the big three. It changed how people insulated their houses. This thing, just the economic damage alone, forget about how they're going to go about treating indoor air quality and stuff. The economic damage from this is really going to carry through. It's going to be hard to make predictions about the future and the appetite for raising taxes when you are dealing with the kind of economic devastation that we're looking at in the future, in the near future.
I can't imagine any government entity anywhere even breathing the word tax increase, the words tax increase in the near future. It just isn't going to happen. And they're already saying across the country that federal, state, and local governments are laying off. And
the flip side is
I'd
the
like
revenue.
to see that. I'd like to see them experience some of the pain the rest of us feel.
Well, and also universities. I mean, universities are losing money right and left.
Why?
And
still getting their tuition.
Because they're not getting income, and
nobody got their tuition back.
Yeah.
Ryan, did you have to give your tuition back?
There's this. We got some of the fees back. There's a surprising amount of revenue lost. To Susan's credit, she is right about. You don't think about like the dining hall fees and stuff, but that is a significant portion of the revenue. Athletic fees also, and lots of other things that are just extra. The tuition makes up a large portion, but there's still a very significant.
It's just the revenue from like Maryland football or lacrosse, basketball. Yeah. And as you know, Jerry, I am the president of the Alumni Association for the University of Minnesota, and I talk to them frequently. And it is painful what is going on there, and staff is already told layoffs could start soon. And our former executive, Ike Leggett, is on the Board of Regents now for the University of Maryland. And he was talking about how they gave back dorm fees and this fee. And there are threats across the country of kids suing universities because they say they've lost out on their college experience. They aren't interacting with professors. They are not in classrooms.
I got to tell you something, Susan.
There's something.
Let me tell you something. That's going to be pennies compared to when the fact that people sit there and go, wait a minute, I can take these courses by Zoom. If they start doing that, and I don't know why technology hadn't had that effect on universities already, like it's had on newspapers and other indries.
Well, there's Phoenix University.
Mark had a great piece about this in Red, Maryland a few weeks ago.
Yeah, no, there's an initiative that called basically a freshman year free, and the Modern State School Educational Consortium, I think it's called, basically has a suite of freshman courses that are available, and they will pay the fees for the testing for basically what you need to do to get it. So the way the initiative is set up is designed to allow for kids to get all the credits they would have gotten from a freshman year in college without having to pay the fees for that. So
I've been asking that question for 10 years. I don't understand why it hadn't already happened.
Jerry, there is one little funny point in this whole thing. All these kids, the left is, a wholly owned subsidiary of the Trial Lawyers Association. Right. Now, those trial lawyers are going to sue themselves like, hey, Casey, welcome. I will yield my time to Casey Aiken.
Wait a minute. Welcome, I just want to interject.
Hi there, everyone. Sorry, I screwed the pooch here.
Ryan, I don't know about you. I want to finish one point, Casey. Ryan, I don't know about you, but the college kids I know who are taking classes online say it's not as good. And you can talk about Phoenix University online, but most students go to college because for the college experience, being with other students, having the social interaction, having the repartee in person.
I think the reason it's not
I
as
spent 9 years in college.
I think the reason
What
it's
an
not as
ancient history view of life, Susan.
yeah, it's not as
Let's hear it
good
from
is because it's not tooled properly right now. I don't think that's because the technology isn't there, right?
And
The real issue is that it was kind of thrown together at the last minute and we're building the ship as we fly. But I think one of the realizations that's happened is it's not working out well right now, but there's a lot of potential going forward if we actually had sufficient time to plan how to adapt it to the new platform, which I think
But we talked at the beginning about we're feeling isolated and not having interaction. I think there is a great deal to be said about going to school, whether it's Montgomery College, the University of Maryland, or Harvard, about interacting with other minds and having that.
And the question,
experience.
Susan, is at what cost? The cost of college has gone up 5 times the cost of everything else in the last 30 or 40 years.
It depends on what school you're talking about.
And people can't afford it, and these kids are coming out of school in debt like they bought a BMW or a house and they got no house or car.
Not to get too much off topic, but the reason the cost of college has gone up so much is because the useless administration has bloated beyond belief. I mean, just today, I'm the president of a club at Virginia Tech, and we got an email. They rejected our registration because our logo did not conform to the standards or whatever. It's like, this is a $100,000 a year job that doesn't need to exist. You are a waste of my tuition money, and also now a waste of my time, quite frankly. But to vent there a little bit. But yes, that's exactly right, is that tuition has ballooned because we've made college into this experience of, yes, the social interaction is supposed to be there, but once you start offering all of these community initiatives and director of this and director of that and support services, it just balloons and balloons and balloons out of control.
Casey,
you're already smarter than most of the people I know.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Casey, welcome.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of missed things. First I thought it was tomorrow, and then I couldn't find the invitation. So, but even a technological dinosaur like myself appreciates the fact that online learning is the future, and that traditional colleges are obsolete. They're no longer necessary. People are going to be more and more wanting to go to schools that teach subjects that are current and relevant to their lifetime goals than what the liberal arts profession has been teaching.
But how do you learn biology or
three
chemistry?
centuries.
How do you do biology or chemistry? Or there are a lot of
Susan, you're looking at it as all or none. If they take half the college courses and throw them online, you can cut that whole deal in half. You cut the costs in half. You can still have your sampling of the perspective of having that college life, and you can drink beer at home while you study.
Jerry, I was going to say, Jerry, you went to Tulane, didn't you go for the social interaction and no other reason?
Listen,
be truthful, Jerry.
I played rugby on a college campus for 9 years. I know all about this. I wrote that book.
So Jerry, was it like the White House? They said after 9 years you have to go. Here's your degree. Go away.
Well, I played rugby for 4.5 years at Tulane and another 4.5 years at AU. And when I better not tell you what event we did in the Rathskeller at AU when they threw us out, but it was well worth it.
But I tell you this, like Mark, when I was at GW, it's $22,000 a year was the tuition. Now GW over $100,000. If they got rid of the bloated bureaucracy and did online courses, digital books, because those professors at GW, as you know, we've had some of the same professors. They write a couple of books, they churn books out, and those become required books for their classes. And then you're shelling out $60, $70, in just books. When now you can do a digital book and it should.
And how many of these courses are taught by TAs who are 25, 26-year-olds? I wouldn't hire those people and pay them a lot of money, but you want me to pay a lot of money in tuition to have them teach my kid? I'm sorry.
Well, I think that you have to think about the university. Again, I'll go back to Minnesota. It's a state university. It has one of the lowest out-of-state tuitions in the country. It's not anywhere near the
it's
price.
cold.
Nobody
Give me a
wants
break.
to-
You don't
Cold.
have to go. You can go to state universities, and they are not that expensive. I think there are ways.
They're a
of
lot
getting
more
around.
expensive than they used to be.
But
When I
The
got out,
Minnesota,
when I graduated from Tulane and needed to take journalism courses at Maryland, on the meager amount of money, I could sit there and write it out of my checkbook. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Even Montgomery College, they're charging like they're astronomical, I think, for.
No, it's a pretty good deal.
It's not-
Montgomery College is.
It's a good deal relatively, I think.
It is.
I mean,
But I mean, you're getting to the point where you may as well pay money for like doing it via University of Maryland, University College, which is now something else.
University of Maryland Global Campus.
Oh, Global Campus, yeah, whatever. I don't recognize that name.
but do people like Casey? His kids are gone now. But do parents really want their kids around for 4 years?
There's.
I mean, there is a cost for that too. I think in terms of mental health.
I think now we're getting to the real reasons behind a lot of the way things
that's
are done.
free. That's
So-
free yard work for 4 years. No, no leaves to rake, no snow to shovel, no garden to till. Yeah, that's free labor for 4 years.
So
Yeah.
Ryan, are they glad to see you at your house? Or they
I think it's about a 50-50 mixed reaction from both sides of the equation here. A little bit of credit to Susan's point. I agree a lot with what Jerry has to say about how we should move more towards a hybrid approach. But I, for one, am ready to go back in the fall, hopefully, to my old routine.
Don't get me wrong. College is great.
It's a
But
lot
they've
of
made
fun.
the cost impossible to bear. Sending these kids out with all this college debt, on top of the fact that we're saddling them with federal and state debt, it's unconscionable we would do that to
And
our
then
children
they have to pay
and now to
taxes.
our grandchildren.
And
You
then,
know what,
Jerry,
Jim?
they got to pay
I
taxes when
think-
they graduate, when they get their job, and they're being taxed like 20-30% of their paychecks goes to taxes.
Susan?
Guys, I do think that this whole thing is perhaps going to make universities think again about a lot of issues, not only long online learning, but perhaps tuition and other ways to keep the kids on campus. But I think this whole crisis has made a lot of changes in our lives and in the way that we live in the future. I mean, there is something to be said, and Dr. Fauci said this. He said we would be a healthier country if we never shook hands again. Now that's a tiny little thing.
Fauci has been wrong since January, and he changes his position every week. I mean,
shaking hands has been verboten for a long time, and we do it. It is the best way out to share.
You just want to radicalize the entire civilization. People
Now
aren't
there
gonna
are
do that.
better ways. You don't have to shake hands.
You're not going to hug somebody. You're not going to let Joe Biden
Casey,
sniff
I don't
people's
know.
hair. Are
Maybe
you
not.
kidding me? We're not.
Well, no, you will probably won't hug quite as much strangers, but I think we're all going to make changes in our lives. 88% of the United States of Americans right now are 85 don't want kids to return to school because of these germs. 80% said they're not ready to go back to a restaurant.
Well, the problem is the media has done a marvelous job of scaring the crap out of the American public as to how dangerous the world is. The fact is, until everyone is exposed to this virus, it's going to be there. It's not going away. There won't be a vaccine, and there really won't be any prophylactic drugs. So we got to learn to live with it and adjust to it, and not be afraid of it.
That raises an interesting issue is the expectation. And we, of course, we last had a show, at least the 21 show, we were talking about bending the curve, and that was not to have the hospitals overwhelmed. And clearly that's the criteria that we have here in Maryland. We've got to have a reduction in the cases for a period of time. That said, when that happened, when we reach that point where we can begin to open up things again, we still will have the virus out there, and people will still be getting it, and people will still be getting sick and there'll still be consequences. And I'm not sure that we've kind of completely grappled with what that all means.
There was a great article that we haven't flattened the curve as much as we flattened the healthcare system. This city is all about hospitals, and everybody else in the hospital that's not connected to COVID is out of work. And the hospitals are going broke.
That is
laid off.
That is actually one of the most. I've heard that from a number of people, and the hospitals financially are taking a huge hit because where they were making money was more on the elective stuff, and so the professionals, the specialists in other areas,
everything,
they are being.
Cure is worse than the disease.
But you know what's going to happen is when they do get the flu shot for this every year, I bet that people start getting that vaccine. I mean, I would bet, the flu
vaccine?
Shot each year for the COVID-19.
When is it going to be available?
You missed it earlier, but Oxford University, based on the work they had been doing with MRSA earlier they tested it on monkeys, and they are now testing it on human beings. And they think it could be late this year. So for sure by next year it will be around. But you know what? All of this stuff. Well, but the humanity of it all in the Bethesda beat today, there was a story about nursing homes in Montgomery County. And it was a very sad story. Over half the deaths in Montgomery County come from nursing homes. And someone wrote in a comment, and it sort of sums up the thought that some people have about isolation and stuff. And the comment was, are the old and crippled really worth shutting down movie theaters and everything else? And, that's where we are at right now, the humanity of it all.
That was a very crude statement that somebody made. But,
it was.
But the fact is, the governor and all people in the Maryland health system knew that the most vulnerable people were the people in nursing homes.
Right.
The first mass death was in a Washington State nursing home. And the fact that they didn't take greater precautions to protect the people in nursing homes is borderline criminal. And Larry Hogan's going to get a lot of praise for the job he's done, and he's done a fairly good job. But this is one area where there's failed miserably. When 50% of your fatalities are coming out of nursing homes, and the government didn't do anything until today when he decided that we're going to test everybody in the nursing home. I mean, that's obscene.
Yeah.
It actually
happened. I said earlier, Casey, the very same thing.
Yeah. I think
what happens if Sweden turns out not to have a situation that's demonstrably different from all the countries that have done the lockdown, and they didn't break their economic system to do it?
Jerry, that is wonderful that you brought that up, because the smartest person in the world, Thomas Friedman, wrote in yesterday's New York Times just that very point. Oh my God, you're borderline.
Tom Friedman and Jerry Cave in agreement.
Hey, so we're all going to be buying sobs.
But you know what's interesting about that is the fact that Sweden is a very small country. When you think about
it's a big enough sample base. It's a big enough sample base, Susan.
Isn't
10 million
Sweden?
people.
Isn't Sweden and Michigan have the same population?
And let Susan finish, guys. Come on. Yeah.
When you look at into the population of the United States versus the population of Sweden, we would definitely have millions and millions of people dying. Are we really, as a society, willing to do that?
You don't definitely know anything, Susan. And I studied statistics and have spent my life dealing with statistics in business. And 10 million people in Sweden is a large enough sample base to make a statement.
And they have got, in perspective, they had a lot of deaths compared to their population.
Yeah,
I didn't see what they had. We got to see what it turns out to be.
I'm just saying that I don't think as a country we would want millions of people to die.
I didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth, Susan.
The herd mentality does that.
Yeah, but Jerry, it's hard to take a look at, say, what's happening in the highest concentration places like New York, and Maryland is up there. It's hard to see that without shutting down, we would have been better off, or New York would have been better off.
Sorry, that's my train. I gotta go.
Well, on that note, I'm sorry. Also, I have to get off right
Well,
now.
why
as
don't we
well.
let you do a parting shot, and we can kind of twist off into parting shot. So,
Well, the parting shot is that we're all on the cusp of coming out of this quarantine. It looks as if that our state, Maryland, will be opening up within the next 2 weeks, which I think is a very good thing. And I hope that we successfully transition to the post-quarantine and post-stay-at-home environment. Can't happen soon enough.
Ryan?
My parting shot is it was great to have you all on. I want to congratulate Susan on being the first Democrat to withstand the Montgomery County Republican Club direct line. We had a lot of comments of people disagree. I would say agreeing and disagreeing, but mainly disagreeing. But it's great to have a lively debate here on the show, as opposed to all of us just Dwight going too far and then we have to walk it back, and the typical thing.
Too far.
Jerry?
Well, I would like to tell you the only thing I miss about Maryland, well, I love Maryland, parts of it, is you. I miss you all. I miss
Thanks.
all you all, which is the plural of you all. And I will tell you that the one thing, the greatest thing in the world is right here is grandchildren. And if and when you have one, you'll look back on it and say, daggone it, Jerry undersold it.
Dwight?
My parting shot is basically, I want to say one, it's in two parts. One, I'd like to basically chastise, how some of the things Democrats have been doing, trying to exploit this crisis, like Hillary Clinton is using this to push universal health care. And I mean, really, do we really want universal health care for the next pandemic? I don't think so. Shame on you, Hillary Clinton and Democrats, for trying to politicize a national tragedy.
Susan?
As I said earlier, I really admire governors in their handling of this. The president's numbers are down way below 50% of the way he's handled it. But you look at governors, including Governor Hogan, the chair of the Governors Conference, and Andrew Cuomo, the mayor of New York, the vice chair of the conference. They have both shown leadership in states that have had very different experiences. And they both halted, like Casey reiterated what I said about that. I think Governor Hogan should have dealt with the seniors sooner and all that. And there are some other things, like if he was going to release people from prison, he should have done it sooner, the elderly or whatever. But I think it's interesting. They're both men with integrity who are leading, who love their country, they love the law, and both of them are being attacked on a regular basis by the president. And I think that's unconscionable. This should not be a political thing. And, Governor Hogan, Governor Cuomo, and all the rest are doing the best for the people who elected them. And so it just proves that, you can try your best and you're still going to get attacked. But I commend both of them. Governor Hogan, you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Well, thank you all for participating, and Susan, thank you for those comments in particular. I'd just like to recognize all those essential workers out there, both in the healthcare, but also in all the other, the food service and essentially the essential services that are continuing to be able to work, following the guidelines, but obviously also putting themselves at risk, since there is always that possibility of exposure. It's hard to imagine what our lives collectively would have been if we really didn't have those resources available to us to take care of us. And with that,
and Mark, don't
yes.
forget farmers.
Oh, no, yes,
the food, and bus drivers.
But bus drivers, farmers, all those essential workers who are continuing continuing to sort of provide that foundation, that infrastructure for us. So, and thank you, Ryan, for stepping in for a bit and participating. And that concludes Direct Line for this week. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Mhm. Thanks.
Bye. Good